This free step-by-step video comes to you directly from Haynes, creators of the world's best repair manuals. Fix your car or truck the right way with our accurate and reliable information at your side. You can complete more than 200 jobs on this vehicle when you purchase the complete online manual at Haynes.com.
Pull the hood release lever, located on the driver's side kick panel. Lift the hood safety latch and raise the hood upwards. Remove the wheel trim center cap. Loosen the drive axle hub nut with the vehicle resting on its wheels. Loosen the front wheel lug nuts. Chock the rear wheels. Then jack up the front of the car and support it on jack stands. Remove the appropriate front wheel. Loosen, but do not remove, the 3 strut upper mounting nuts. Remove the drive axle hub nut from the axle and discard it. To prevent the hub from turning as the nut is unscrewed the rest of the way, place a screwdriver or punch through the caliper and into a cooling vane in the brake disc. Remove the nut holding the stabilizer bar link to the strut while counter-holding the ball joint shaft. Disconnect the link and rest it aside for the procedure. Remove the upper and lower brake caliper mounting bracket bolts. Then remove the caliper along with the mounting bracket from the brake disc. Hang the caliper safely out of the way and avoid putting any strain on the brake hose. Remove the brake disc. Remove the lower ball joint nut. Separate the steering knuckle ball joint from the control arm with a ball joint separator tool. Using a 2-jaw puller, push the drive axle out of the hub. A pry bar can be used to prevent the hub from turning. Using a pry bar engaged to the large hole in the control arm, pry the control arm downward to fully separate the control arm from the steering knuckle. Grasp the axle shaft in one hand and pull the hub and strut assembly outward to separate the drive axle CV joint from the hub. Suspend the axle with a piece of wire or rest it on the control arm. Don't let it hang free because this can overextend and damage the CV joints. Remove the brake hose bracket and wheel speed sensor wiring guide from the strut. Remove and discard the cotter pin. Then loosen the castle nut on the tie rod end ball stud, but don't completely remove it. Separate the tie rod end from the steering knuckle with a puller. Once the ball joint stud has been broken loose, remove the castle nut and disconnect the tie rod end, positioning the tie rod end aside. Remove the wheel speed sensor mounting bolt, then remove the wheel speed sensor from the steering knuckle and position it safely out of the way. Mark the relationship of the strut to the steering knuckle. This will simplify assembly. Remove the strut-to-steering knuckle pinch bolt. Wiggle the knuckle and hub assembly off the strut. If it is stuck, tap the assembly off the strut with a brass hammer. Support the strut and remove the 3 upper strut mounting nuts from the tower. Carefully guide the strut and spring assembly out of the wheel well. Carefully guide the new or overhauled strut and spring assembly into the wheel well. Place it in position with the studs extending up through the shock tower. Make sure it is positioned in the same orientation as when it was removed. Install and loosely tighten the upper nuts. Install the knuckle and hub assembly onto the end of the strut, aligning the blade on the strut with the pinch joint in the knuckle. Also, align the index mark made previously. Install the pinch bolt and nut. Make sure it is fitted in the same direction prior to removal. Do not tighten at this time. Pull out on the hub and strut assembly and push the outer CV joint spline shaft as far into the hub as possible by hand. Install the washer and thread a new drive axle hub nut as far as possible by hand. Never reuse the old nut. These are a self-locking design that can only be used once. Pry down on the lower control arm, align the lower ball joint stud with the mounting hole in the control arm, then slowly ease tension on the pry bar as you guide the ball joint into position. Install and tighten the ball joint nut to the specified torque setting. Tighten the strut-to-knuckle pinch bolt to the specified torque setting. Attach the tie rod end ball joint stud to the steering knuckle. Screw on the castle nut, then tighten the nut to the specified torque setting. After the nut has been torqued, tighten the nut slightly further to align the next cancellation in the nut with the cotter pin hole. Install a new cotter pin through the nut. Install the brake hose bracket and wheel speed sensor wiring guide onto the strut. Tighten the bracket bolt securely. Install the wheel speed sensor into the steering knuckle. Tighten the mounting bolt securely. Tighten the 3 upper strut-to-shock lower mounting nuts to the specified torque setting. Install the brake disc, then position the caliper and mounting bracket over the brake disc and align the bolt mounting holes. Install the upper and lower caliper mounting bracket bolts and tighten them to the specified torque setting. Connect the stabilizer bar link to the strut, then install the nut and tighten it to the specified torque setting. Prevent the hub from turning by inserting a screwdriver or punch through a brake disc cooling vane while tightening the drive axle hub nut securely. Delay tightening the nut to the final torque setting until the vehicle is resting on the ground. Install the front wheel and lug nuts. Lower the car to the ground. With the vehicle resting on its wheels, tighten the drive axle hub nut to the specified torque setting. Tighten the wheel lug nuts to the specified torque setting. Install the wheel trim center cap, pushing it firmly into place. Pump the brake pedal several times to bring the brake pads into contact with the disc before driving the vehicle. Repeat this procedure on the remaining front strut assembly.